Hello, my cookies, and welcome to Russell Cooks. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I have an alpine region dish. It is warming you from the inside out as the days get cold. It's called bread soup. Now, I know you're like, what? Bread as a soup? Yes, just trust me. We're going to kind of fancy it up. We're going to make it really delicious. Oftentimes, bread is used as thickeners in soups to keep them dairy-free. Obviously, that prevents it from being gluten-free, but it's like, what do you want? Dairy-free, gluten-free. We're going to get some toppings on top. It's going to be delicious, and it's going to be something a little different that you might not have thought to make. Now that we know what we're doing, let's gather our ingredients. You are going to need some butter. You got a lemon, egg, garlic, optional, caraway seeds, optional, fennel seeds, onion, Swiss chard, escarole can work here, chicory can work here as well. You're not going to need a ton, but you are going to need enough. If you're doing Swiss chard, something with thick stems, do 12 ounces to a pound. If you're doing something like escarole, where you aren't throwing away a whole bunch of weight, you can do something maybe like 4 to 6 ounces. You're going to need some really good stock, vegetable stock, or chicken stock, either works. You're also going to need a hefty amount of pancetta here. I have about 8 ounces. I've already diced it up. And then you're also going to need some small loaves of bread like this. Nothing crazy, no giant sourdough boule. You want it with a soft-ish crust and preferably like a sourdough big bubble rise. If you can find it, great. If not, Italian loaves can be fantastic. I got 3 here. I am going to use some to make some crispy croutons to put on top. You don't need a ton. Look at this. It's like 3 leftover rolls. Some salt. And last but not least, olive oil. Now that we know what we're doing, let's get cooking. Just going to dice up this onion. 1/4 to 1/2 inch pieces is fine. No Michelin stars today. So if you notice on my stove, I've got 3 pots. I got the black one, I got the red one, and I got the orange one. I'm going to be using all 3. This is not a 1-pot meal. All right, I want to put let's do 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just going to heat it up over medium heat. Once that starts to shimmer, and that means it's you'll see the light start to shimmer across it, starts to spread out. I'm going to add my onion and then my pancetta. While we're waiting on that, let's cut our bread up. 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch cubes. If you have a serrated knife, those are best. So I'm just going to cut this bread maybe into thirds this way. All right, let's get cubes. We're also going to make some croutons, so let's be consistent. We'll throw them all in here, but we're not going to add them all. All right, let's add our pancetta and our onions. We're just going to stir that around 5 to 7 minutes, medium heat. You want it to start to brown, but you don't really want a lot of browning here. Just going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Pancetta is going to be salty. Chicken stock has salt in it, so I'm going to taste it at the end for seasoning. Not going to overdo it. Let's keep cutting this bread. Pancetta and onions cooking. This is a flavor base. We're going to get a little bit of garlic in, but not a lot. We're going to toss the garlic in with our croutons as we make it. Let's keep it going. I want all the fat rendered out. Also, while I have this going, I do have a little pot of water, my little orange pot. That is just some water and a little bit of vinegar. I'm going to poach an egg. If you want a sous vide egg, do that. If you want a different type of egg, do whatever you want. So we're going to need some lemon zest. This is way too much lemon zest. I'm not going to use this. This is probably a tablespoon. I might use a teaspoon. Look at this. We got some browning, you can see, but not a ton. Perfect. It's time to add the majority of our bread here. Save enough for the croutons. Stir this up. Don't worry. You're not going to hurt the bread. I'm going to start with 3 cups chicken broth here. Veg broth is fine. I'm thinking it needs more. I'm going to go to 4. 4 cups. I'm just going to put this and simmer it on medium-low heat. I'm going to set on the back burner. I want to cook it for 30 to 45 minutes. You want it to simmer. You want it to cook. You can adjust consistency, add a little bit more chicken broth or vegetable broth as needed as it evaporates and cooks down. But I'm just going to set that aside. Let's move on over to our Swiss chard element. I'm not going to use the stalks. You can use the stalks. I think they're a little bit too earthy. I'm just going to use the leaves here. Rainbow chard is fine. Swiss chard, whatever. It's these hearty greens. These are amazing. I haven't washed these yet. I will wash it. But what I like to do is pretty much just pop this and then strip it. Typically, I'm better at stripping it. It's been a while. You got any bruised bits, just get them out. I'm just gonna cut it up 2-inch pieces-ish. Broth has gone down a little bit. I'm gonna add about 2 more cups. Keep simmering it. All right, let's wash this Swiss chard. I'm gonna start with a couple tablespoons of butter. So I got about 2 tablespoons of butter, high heat. If your leaves are still wet, you don't have to dry them, that's fine. The water helps them cook down. Swiss chard is naturally salty. I am gonna add a little bit of salt, but keeping in mind, naturally has a good amount of salt in it. We're just gonna stir this, and we're gonna wilt the Swiss chard down into the butter. The reason I did 2-inch pieces is because it'll shrink down to like 1/2-inch pieces. All right, I still have my heat on high for this Swiss chard. It does take a little bit for it to become tender. You know what? Let's put a little bit of garlic in there too. Got a teaspoon of lemon zest and about 1/2 teaspoon of my garlic here. I might add a little bit more lemon zest. All right, we're almost there. About 60 more seconds of cook time. I'm gonna hit it with that remaining bit of butter that I cut off at the end. We're gonna make this nice and rich. All right, dropping the heat to low, popping in my butter, and just stirring it around. Melting that butter. Gonna taste it for seasoning. I'm gonna put a pinch more salt in. Let's hit it with a little lemon juice now, and then we're just gonna let it sit. Let's get it off the stove. Stirring this bread soup. Oh yeah. Crust is getting soft. That's why you gotta simmer it. You want the crust really soft. I got a little bit of vinegar in there. Let's add a little bit of salt. While we're waiting, let's do our croutons. Olive oil. Get our garlic in. More oil. All right, put them on a tray. A little bit of salt. Make your croutons. Okay, I see a little bit here. It's not quite. I'm just gonna flip it, rotate it here. Poached egg. It's done. All right, it's breaking down. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and puree it up. Yeah, I got my Vitamix. Immersion blender works. Food processor can work. Perfect. Look at these croutons. Beautiful, garlicky. Look at that. So easy. So I pureed my soup for about 60 seconds. I got it really smooth. I'm just gonna wipe out my pot. I'm gonna put it back in the pot because there's little chunks that didn't come out, like little bits of onion. I don't want it in the soup. Look at this consistency. Has a nice chowder-like consistency, doesn't it? If yours is a little too thick, you can add more chicken broth or vegetable broth. If it's too thin, you can try and cook it down a little bit more or just accept that it's a little thin. That's okay. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Also, remember, it is incredibly hot. As it cools a little bit, it'll thicken up. I'm glad I didn't add any more salt. Right there. Let's plate this up. I'm gonna get a little bit of my Swiss chard, my poached egg, some of my garlicky croutons. We had to add bread to our bread soup, right? Caraway seeds, these are optional. These will add a big burst of flavor, 1 bite at a time. 5 seeds, plenty. 6, plenty. Okay, I dropped about 10. Fennel seeds, same thing. Just gonna add a few here. I also have some chives, again, optional. Let's do a couple drops of olive oil right here. It's just so good. After a long day of skiing or sledding or just falling down the side of a cold mountain, this is what I would want to eat. So remember, we cut that Swiss chard up. This is why. Look at that. Fits on my spoon. Nothing's dangling. Pork, bread, earthiness from the Swiss chard. Let's get this crunchy crouton in here. Let's get some of that egg. Ooh, I just got a caraway seed. That was a nice little pot. Complimented. Didn't take over. Complimented. All right. I'm done, everybody. You don't want to just stand there and watch me eat soup. All right. So that was bread soup. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like what you saw, don't forget to follow me on YouTube, Twitch. I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.